First impressions of the New York Ranger free agent pickups. Is Jonathan Quick for real? Was Erik Gustafsson the steal of free agency? And is it time to be worried about Blake Wheeler?
You're Locked on the New York Rangers, your daily podcast on the New York Rangers. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome back, Blue Shirts fans, to episode number 931 of the Locked On New York Rangers podcast. I'm your host, John Chick. So I want to thank you guys, as always, for making Locked On New York Rangers your first listen every day. We are free and available on all platforms, including YouTube. And today's episode of Locked On New York Rangers is brought to you by FanDuel. Make every moment more. Right now, new customers can get $150 in bonus bets with any winning $5 money line bet. That's $150 if your team wins. Visit FanDuel.com/LockedOn to get started. And we are, of course, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. So for today's episode, figured it'd be a good time to kind of take inventory on how the newest players on the New York Rangers have fared thus far this season. Of course, it's early, but always nice to kind of just take a look at the way things stand and get some first impressions out on the table here. We're going to be covering Jonathan Quick, Nick Bonino, Erik Gustafsson. We're going to throw Will Cooley in there. I know he's not a free agent pickup. I know he played 4 games with the Rangers last season, but regardless, still very new to the team and somebody that the Rangers are hoping to get big things from. You've also got Blake Wheeler and Tyler Pitlick. So we'll start things off with Jonathan Quick, who has been awesome. He relieved Igor Shesterkin against the Predators, the one bad game that the Rangers have had so far this season. Stopped all 9 shots in relief. It's kind of funny that that's the way that Jonathan Quick made his debut with, the team that he grew up idolizing, the team that he grew up a fan of. Kind of an unceremonious way to make your debut, but regardless, he still played well and obviously, again, came up with all 9 saves. Then he plays at Seattle, stops 18 out of 19 shots, won that game, and then surprise starter at Edmonton comes up with a 29 save shutout. So, with all these guys, again, there's going to be a theme here. It is early. We don't want to jump to too many conclusions here, too many rash takeaways. But small sample size or not, Jonathan Quick has stopped 56 of 57 shots. And even people that were excited about this pickup, that felt like this would be a good fit, I don't know that you could have seen it going as well as it had. And watching Jonathan Quick, he just looks rejuvenated. He's moving around the crease very well. He's holding his ground during some scrambles in the Ranger crease. He looks like he's having fun, and clearly he wanted to be a member of this New York Ranger team. He just won his 3rd Stanley Cup this past season, and he could have hung him up if he wanted to keep going. And if you come to the Rangers as a goalie, you understand that you're doing so in a backup role because they've got this guy named Igor Shesterkin who's pretty good. But, Quick, overall, throughout the years, he's had teammates rave about, his competitive fire and what a good teammate he is. And as I mentioned in the preseason when the Rangers were signing Quick, I feel like he still could be, and maybe already has been, something of a mentor to Igor Shesterkin. Now, as we discussed at the time, does Igor Shesterkin, is he in desperate need of a mentor and a big brother type? No, not necessarily, but show me any goalie on this planet at any level who can't get something out of Jonathan Quick, who can't find something to take away from his playing style or the way he goes about preparing for games, his mental preparation for games. I got to feel like Jonathan Quick can help any goalie at any level with some aspect of their game. And, Igor, one thing that he mentioned coming into this season was he was going to try not to be so tough on himself after some losses. We saw a lot of that last year. Anytime he had a bad game, he would kind of beat himself up for it. And I think there was a little bit of a snowball effect there. Now, of course, it's hard to know that for sure this year because the Rangers haven't been losing very often. But, the one bad game that the Rangers had was against the Predators, and certainly Igor was not at his sharpest in that game either. I don't believe he said anything, too bad about himself after that game. So maybe that's the thing that Jonathan Quick can help Igor with is a little bit, the mental side of the game and just kind of having a short memory, not being too hard on yourself. And if you have a bad game, just forget it. Those are things that, a lot of athletes are taught at every single level, but it can be easy to forget that sometimes, especially I'm sure when you're playing in the National Hockey League, you're playing for the New York Rangers, you're under the spotlight and expectations are so high. Yeah, at times I'm sure that can get away from you a little bit. And Igor, like I said, he took it really hard when he had a bad game last season. And there was, like I said, a little bit of a snowball effect. So hopefully that's an area where Jonathan Quick can help him. And as far as just actually playing the net right now, Jonathan Quick looks great. Again, only 2 starts and 3 appearances, but so far so good. And obviously we hope that Jonathan Quick can keep this up for the rest of the season. We've also got Nick Bonino to move on to him. 9 games so far. He's played in all 9 games. 0 points. He's a -1 and only has 3 shots on goal, averaging 10 minutes and 41 seconds of ice time per night. He's at 58.8% on the faceoff circle. That's probably unsustainable. I mean, I don't know that anybody wins 58% for the entire season. You know, the best in the league, I don't think they cracked 60. Messier, I think maybe a couple times did it back in the day, but he was ridiculous. Yeah, so I probably won't stay at 58.8, but Nick Bonino, a good faceoff man, and he's won some big faceoffs so far for the Rangers. He's also got 2 hits, and get ready for this, 31 block shots. I projected this over the entire season, which, you know, I'm not the biggest fan of doing this early because obviously there's numbers, team numbers and individual numbers that are unsustainable at this juncture of the season. It is still very early, but if you project that throughout the entire season, 31 block shots in 9 games, that comes out to about 282 block shots for Nick Bonino over an 82-game regular season. Again, that's probably unlikely to happen, but you got to appreciate him sacrificing his body. I mean, there have been penalty kills the Rangers have had where, you know, he's out there blocking 2, 3, 4 shots on a single penalty kill. So props to him for doing that. And obviously, you know, sacrificing his body and helping the team win. We also mentioned in our last season, the Rangers are 10th in the league in the penalty kill. And as I mentioned, Nick Bonino has a huge hand in that. He's very quickly become one of the go-to penalty killers on this team. And you know, given that the Rangers right now are probably taking at least a few too many penalties, it's nice to have a lot of good penalty killers that you can rely on to kind of get you off the hook a little bit. And I think Nick Bonino has done a very nice job with that. He seems to be very good, especially on the penalty kill, of anticipating the play. There's times, and I made this comment, you know, kind of early in the season, we're getting our first impressions of, you know, these players right out of the starting gate, and it feels like he's really, really good. Like he knows what the team on the power play, what his opponent is going to do with the puck before his opponent knows what he's going to do with the puck. He's done a nice job breaking up some passes that way. He's come up with some timely clears. A couple of times he's kind of stood up his guy at the blue line when they're trying to gain entry on the power play. So far, so good. You know, I do see some Ranger fans occasionally get on the fourth line right now. And I can kind of see why if you look at, you know, some of the advanced stats, they're not pretty as far as the Ranger fourth line is concerned. Their expected goals per game per 60 minutes is like 0.7, and their expected goals against per 60 minutes is like over 3. But I don't know. I think sometimes those stats can be at least a little bit misleading. When the fourth line is on the ice, and this includes Bonino, obviously, I don't feel like, you know, doom is right around the corner or, oh man, we're going to be giving up chances left and right here. I'm not really seeing that despite what the advanced metrics say. And so far, Bonino, for his penalty killing ability, his ability to win faceoffs, his willingness to block shots, to me, this has been a really nice pickup for the New York Rangers. I see some people, I'll get rid of him. Maybe there's, you know, some people that still think of him as a Pittsburgh Penguin. I'm kind of over that. You know, to begin with, even when Bonino was on the Penguins, I disliked him a lot less than I disliked most of the Pittsburgh Penguins. So there's that. But again, I do feel like this is a really nice pickup for the Rangers in an offseason where they didn't have a ton of cap space and they had to be a little bit crafty and, you know, go to basically the dollar store as far as free agency is concerned. And again, I do still think there's some value from a guy like Nick Bonino on the team, proven veteran, multiple Stanley Cup champion, and basically everything I just said, you know, a hard-nosed player and somebody that as a fourth-line center, I think is just fine. We're going to keep everything rolling in just a second here. Want to talk about some of the other free agent pickups, including the guy who I think might be the steal of free agency, at least thus far. And we're also going to throw Will Cooley in there. Again, I know he's not a free agent pickup, but still new to the team this season, or mostly new to the team after playing 4 games last season. We're going to do all that fun stuff in just a second. But first, definitely want to let everybody know that today's episode of Locked On New York Rangers is brought to you by Sleeper. A new NHL season brings all sorts of possibilities. Mika Zibanejad could score 50 goals. The New York Rangers could hoist the Stanley Cup, and you could win big by playing daily fantasy hockey on Sleeper, the official daily fantasy app of the Locked On NHL Network. Sleeper is our #1 choice for daily fantasy sports, especially daily fantasy hockey, because with Sleeper, you can win 100 times your cash in daily fantasy hockey contests. All you have to do is pick whether studs like Panarin or Mika or Kreider or Adam Fox or Igor Shesterkin will record more or less than their sleeper projections for things like goals, assists, saves, plus minus, and more in a given game. To win 100 times your bet on Sleeper, you need to correctly predict the outcome of 8 player stats. You heard me, Ranger fans. You can win 100 times your money playing daily fantasy hockey with Sleeper. So start paying attention and nail your picks so you can start winning big. Use promo code LOCKEDONNHL and you will get up to a $100 match on your first deposit. Terms and conditions apply. That's code LOCKEDONNHL. See Sleeper's terms of use for details and locational availability. All right, we just want to go ahead and thank you guys, as always, for making Locked On New York Rangers your first listen every day. We are free and available on all platforms. And for the everydayers, got one more episode for this week after this one, our Friday episode, or maybe even late Thursday, depending on when I record. But regardless, obviously going to be covering tonight, Thursday night's big matchup between the Rangers and Canes. Rangers looking for their 6th straight win against a team that's really emerged as one of their biggest rivals. Can't wait to watch that game, and can't wait to come back here and recap it with you guys once it's over. But for right now, let's go ahead, keep our attention on the Ranger free agent pickups, the new players on the New York Rangers this season. Erik Gustafsson, I've been calling him the steal of free agency. I think that nickname is pretty appropriate. Something I've been saying kind of off and on here ever since the season started was, show me anybody as far as free agent pickups this offseason that are on a new team that are making 6 figures that are doing better than Erik Gustafsson. And I decided to actually look this up and look at all the different free agent signings. So Erik Gustafsson's at $825K this year. That's the same as Jonathan Drouin and Andrew Cogliano. They're both making the same amount. Cogliano has 3 assists with the Avalanche, but, he's a forward. And Jonathan Drouin hasn't done a whole lot. Guys making less than Gustafsson include, listen to some of these names, like Jonah Gadjevich. I've never heard of that player. I don't know who that is. Luke Glendening, Josh Archibald, our old friend Tyler Mott, Alex Stalock, Brendan Lemieux, Julian Gauthier, Austin Watson, Nathan Todd. Like, I have a hard time believing that any of these players are contributing to the Rangers at as high of a level, or contributing to whatever team they're on at as high of a level as Erik Gustafsson is for the New York Rangers. He is so far the steal of free agency. As far as his stats so far this season, Gustafsson is at 2 goals, 2 assists. He's also a +5. He's second on the team in plus-minus after K'Andre Miller, who is a +6. He's averaging 17.43 of ice time per night, 9 block shots, and 3 hits. And, coming into this season, the one worry that I had with Gustafsson is, okay, what's this guy all about? What's his deal? What's his skill set? What are his strengths and weaknesses? And one of his biggest strengths is his ability to quarterback the power play. We talked about that, how, for Peter Laviolette with the Caps last season, John Carlson missed a bunch of games, and Erik Gustafsson really stepped up into that role on the top power play unit and did a really nice job there. But I'm looking at the Rangers, and I'm seeing this surplus of players that can play on the power play. Not even just like forwards, defensemen too. You've got Fox, obviously. You've got Miller. He can play the power play. So can Jacob Trouba. And so I'm wondering, Erik Gustafsson, his greatest strength is his work on the power play. Is he even going to be able to do that with the Rangers? But they've used him a lot on the power play. Granted, it's the second unit, but still, he gets out there. As far as the second unit, that's kind of the one area of the Rangers that's been in a little bit of a state of flux. Everything else is pretty much locked in. The top power play unit, all 4 lines, the D pairings, the penalty kill, everything else has pretty much stayed the same. Second power play is, changed a little bit here and there. Lafreniere, Kakko, and Hedel are always out there. But we've also seen Blake Wheeler. We've seen Will Cooley. Obviously, Gustafsson himself. K'Andre Miller's been out there. Jacob Trouba's been out there. So a little bit of a revolving door, but I think of all those players I just mentioned outside of the former kid line, the guy that's seen the most time on the power play is Erik Gustafsson. And he's only got the 1 assist so far on the power play, but he looks good, and it's nice to see him contributing in an area where he can definitely help the Rangers. It might be his greatest strength, again, is his ability to quarterback the power play. And so far, the Ranger power play has been awesome. They're at 34.4%, and Gustafsson hasn't played as big of a role in that as some other guys, but he's still a part of it. So good on him. And it's nice to see him excelling, or at least contributing in that role. One of my preseason predictions was that Gustafsson would sign an in-season extension this year, the same way that Jimmy Vesey did last year, the same way that Ben Harper did last year. That could still happen. But I'm wondering also, Gustafsson's played very well. And it's possible that he signed this 1-year deal with the Rangers at a low price as kind of like his prove-it year, so to speak. And, I can go out there and play for the Rangers, this talented team. It's a good team. Maybe I'll have a chance to win a Stanley Cup. And when the season ends, I'll be a free agent, and my price and my years will go up. I get the feeling like if Gustafsson continues to play like this, he's not going to have to settle for a 1-year contract at $825K next offseason. He's going to get a longer contract for more money per year. And I don't think that's going to come from the Rangers, just because, again, their cap situation. 6 defensemen isn't really a spot where you can spend big if you're the Rangers. If the cap goes up, that helps a little bit, and maybe we could talk about Gustafsson sticking around. But very curious to see what'll happen there once this season ends and we get into the offseason and free agency begins. And one way for sure that Gustafsson has played well is that there are no Ranger fans right now calling to see Zach Jones or Matthew Robertson. Now, those guys could eventually have a role with the Rangers. They could eventually go on to have great NHL careers. Who's to say for sure? But right now, and Ranger fans, and I include myself in this, the player that we tend to get frustrated with tends to be that veteran journeyman that comes in and seems to be blocking a path to playing time for one of the young players. And Gustafsson's here, and he was a candidate to be that guy, but he's played so well that nobody has an issue with it. Everybody's happy to see Erik Gustafsson in the lineup night in and night out. So again, the steal of free agency. We move on to Will Cooley. Again, not a free agent pickup, but still new to the team this year, relatively new to the team. 1 goal so far this season. He's a +1, 9 shots on goal, averaging 13.02 of ice time per night, 25 hits. He actually leads the team with 25 hits, and by quite a bit. Second on the team in hits is Jacob Trouba with 18. So he's very physical, is Will Cooley. I feel like he's getting chances every now and then. Like he should have more than just the 1 point. He did have that goal disallowed that went off his skating in because the NHL can't figure out what a kick is. Cooley does find other ways to stand out, namely because of his physicality. And, he doesn't just hit people. He hits people pretty good. They're not just love taps where like, oh, I get a hit for that. No, he tends to really body people. And I like his slap shot. We haven't seen a whole ton of that, but there have been a couple times where he's gotten a chance on a one-timer and it's either gone wide or, the save has been made, whatever it might be. He came close to scoring in this most recent game against the Jets. You had Blake Wheeler deflecting a pass from Vincent Trocheck over to Cooley on the other side of the net. Wasn't able to convert it, was Cooley, but regardless, at least still there, in deep around the net. One thing that we saw in the preseason from Cooley that I don't think we've seen quite as much of in the regular season, we've seen a little bit of it, but not as much, is his ability to be a net front presence. Now, part of the reason for this might be that there's quite a bit less resistance in the preseason because guys that are established NHL players, they're not really going full bore and really selling out as far as, defending is concerned. So maybe he's facing a little bit more resistance there. But we've seen him go to the net a couple of times, and I just mentioned that scoring opportunity he had there. But I'm hoping that we do see more of that from Will Cooley because that third line, they haven't really gotten it going yet. And that's something that could continue to be an issue for the Rangers as secondary scoring. I mean, Trocheck's got like 3 points, maybe 4 points somewhere in there. Wheeler doesn't have any, and Will Cooley just has the 1 goal. So the Rangers are not getting a lot of scoring from their depth forwards. But one way to maybe make that happen is if Will Cooley can kind of set up shop in front of the net, do some of what Kreider does. Nobody expects him to be able to redirect pucks the way that Kreider does, but something along those lines where at least he's creating havoc, maybe getting a couple goals on rebounds, some loose change in the crease there. We will see how that goes going forward. But Cooley so far, I think he's played well. Looks every bit the part of an AHL player, and it's possible that he's on the Rangers for good, never heads back down to the AHL at any point. Keep everything rolling in just a second here. Want to get to Blake Wheeler. I know a lot of people are concerned about Blake Wheeler and what he's done so far. Also going to talk a little bit about Tyler Pitlick and a quick look at the free agents that are currently playing with the Hartford Wolfpack as well. We're going to get to all that good stuff in just a second. But first, got to let everybody know that today's episode of Locked On New York Rangers is brought to you by Indeed. When you're drafting your fantasy team, do you ever wish you could do the same thing with your business team? If you're building a roster to win the league, you need Indeed. Indeed is the hiring platform where you can attract, interview, and hire all in one place. Don't spend hours on multiple job sites looking for candidates with the right skills when you can do it all with Indeed. Find top talent fast with Indeed's suite of powerful hiring tools like Indeed Instant Match, assessments, and virtual interviews. Indeed knows when you're growing your own business, you have to make every dollar count. That's why with Indeed, you only pay for quality applications that match your must-have job requirements. Visit Indeed.com/lockedon to start hiring now. Just go to Indeed.com/lockedon. Indeed.com/lockedon. Terms and conditions apply. Cost per application pricing not available for everyone. Need to hire? You need Indeed. And today's episode of Locked On New York Rangers is also brought to you by FanDuel. Score early this NFL season with FanDuel, America's #1 sports book. Right now, new customers can get $150 in bonus bets with any winning $5 moneyline bet. That's $150 if your team wins. If you've been thinking about joining FanDuel, there is no better time than right now to get in on all the action. The app is so easy to use. There's a wide range of betting options, including spreads, player props, over-unders, and much, much more. So visit FanDuel.com/LockedOnNHL and kick off the NFL season. FanDuel, official partner of the NFL. All right, let's go ahead and keep everything rolling here. Want to cover last couple of free agent pickups for the Rangers, including Blake Wheeler. Probably along with Jonathan Quick, the biggest name that the Rangers picked up in free agency. But I think of all the free agent pickups, most of us expected that Blake Wheeler would play the biggest role on this team, may make the most positive impact. I mean, there was some talk about that, some conjecture for sure. I thought it would be Blake Wheeler as far as most impactful New York Ranger free agent pickup. It's been a struggle so far. That's, probably putting it mildly at this point. 9 games in, no points. He has a team worst -4, a career low 11:51 of time on the ice. More on that in a second, by the way. 3 block shots for Blake Wheeler, 3 hits, has 18 shots on goal. And for whatever it's worth, he has actually gone 5-0 on the faceoff circle. But, again, a lot of us debated who would be the best UFA pickup. And so far, I got that one wrong, saying that it would be Blake Wheeler. And it's not just the lack of points, it's the fact that he just hasn't really been all that noticeable. And honestly, when you do notice him, a lot of times it's for the wrong reasons because he just can't skate very well at this point. He's not moving very fast out there. And you kind of wonder to yourself when you see Blake Wheeler in action out there. And I'm not trying to be mean or anything, but it's just kind of like, okay, is that as fast as he can go anymore? Like, is that his top speed? That does come to mind every now and then when you're watching him. The good news here is that obviously it's a very slow start for Blake Wheeler with his new team. It's not really hurting the Rangers. The Rangers are playing, for the most part, great hockey. They're excelling at special teams, getting awesome goaltending. There seems to be a new focus on defensive structure, which is paying off. We saw that in the road trip. Rangers only allowing 7 goals total in the 5 games, limiting second chance opportunities for their opponents as well. So Blake Wheeler has 0 points. Rangers are still 7-2. I mentioned his ice time a second ago. He's not getting a lot of it. To really break this down, the most he got as far as time on the ice was exactly 15 minutes, and that was on opening night for the Rangers. His second highest total of ice time was at Winnipeg, 13 minutes and 32 seconds. That's the most recent game that the Rangers played, and I have to believe that was somewhat by design. Peter Laviolette wanting to get Blake Wheeler out there. He spent 12 years in Winnipeg with the Jets, so let him go out there, let him play, let him try to contribute. Obviously, Blake Wheeler started the game with Trocheck and Cooley in the first period. He also started the second period with his 2 line mates. But yeah, I mean, I think other than that, his time on the ice kind of tells a story because other than the 2 games I just mentioned, opening night and the game in Winnipeg, which again, his higher ice time was probably for sentimental reasons more than anything. Besides those 2 games, he hasn't gotten 13 minutes of ice time in any of the games that the Rangers have played. I can't really argue against it because, frankly, he's getting outplayed by other Ranger forwards. He's not in the top 6 right now. Will he eventually be there at some point in the season? We'll see. He's not really going to kill penalties, so he's not going to get time on the ice there. He's appeared very sparingly on the power play, not getting a lot of time on the ice there, and not going to be on the ice when you're protecting a late lead or probably even when you're down by a goal late in the game either. I feel like the Rangers have other guys that they would go to in a situation like that. So, yeah, it's kind of been a rough go of it for Blake Wheeler, but the silver lining here again is that, the Rangers are 7-2, so they can be a little bit more patient than they would otherwise be able to be if they were like 3-6. And it's like, okay, we need to start winning some games here. Season's getting away from us. They're 7-2. Give them a little bit of time to hopefully figure it out. And something I said in a recent episode as well, I'm hoping when he gets that first point, that maybe he starts to get it rolling a little bit. Let's kind of give Blake Wheeler the benefit of the doubt for now. I preach patience on here, whether it's Kako, Lafreniere, Hedel, whoever it might be. When you're dealing with a player, in those cases, young players, but give them a chance. Let them try to figure it all out. I'll do the same thing for a veteran player here. Let's continue to give him a chance. Again, 12 years in Winnipeg. He goes from there, which my understanding is it's kind of a smaller city, especially for one that, hosts an NHL team. So he goes from there to New York City, new coach, new teammates, new system, the whole 9 yards. I'm sure his family is still getting settled and everything. So, yeah, let's once Blake Wheeler gets his first point, let's then draw the line in the sand and see if he can't pick it up a little bit. Hopefully, if he gets his first point tonight, hopefully it's not another 10 games until he gets another point. Or at that point, we probably have a problem. So, we'll cross that bridge when we get there. But 9 games in, I understand the concern. I even understand people wanting to look at other options, whether it's, Patrick Kane or, Brand Hoffman, whatever the case might be. I get it to an extent, but I'm not quite there yet. I'm willing to continue to give him at least a little bit of a chance going forward. And then the only other, Ranger free agent pickup that I wanted to mention here was Tyler Pitlick, and it's kind of hard to assess him because obviously, I don't know what happened to my screen just now, but I guess we'll just keep rolling here. So anyway, Tyler Pitlick was a free agent pickup by the Rangers, and he's only appeared in 2 games so far. He played an opening night at Buffalo, also played in the 3rd game of the season, which was the Rangers' home opener against the Coyotes. During camp in the preseason, I was kind of sensing that he had taken the lead from Jimmy Vesey as far as the 12th forward is concerned. I think a lot of Ranger fans, myself included, were not thrilled with this. But in time here, Jimmy Vesey has eclipsed or seemingly eclipsed Tyler Pitlick, for the short term and possibly the long term as the 12th forward. But Tyler Pitlick in 2 games, no points. He's an even plus minus, 1 shot on goal, 10.59 per night, 2 block shots, 4 hits. We did see him lay a couple good hits on his opponents from time to time. He does seem to be a pretty hard hitter. For a 13th forward, he's fine. But I do wonder, is he going to make it through the season with the Rangers? I just mentioned Kane. I just mentioned Othman. Either one of them could be in the mix at a certain point. It's possible. And even if they're not, Rangers can make a move or two at the trade deadline. Like, is Tyler Pitlick at some point going to be a casualty for the Rangers? We'll see. For right now, 13th forward, mixing into the lineup every once in a while, it's fine. Figure we could conclude with the Hartford Wolfpack and the players that they picked up. So you've got the Wolfpack, first of all, 5-2 right now. They are second out of 8 teams in the Atlantic Division. The Hershey Bears are in first place. Alex Belzile has scored 3 goals and 5 assists in 7 games, so he's off to a nice start for you to pick up from the Montreal Canadiens. Defenseman Mac Hollowell with 7 assists so far. He's a +2. Riley Nash, 3 goals, 3 assists. He's a +3. And also of note here, the guy everybody wants to hear about, Brian Othman, 2 goals and 4 assists, and he's a -2. And I do think we'll see Brian Othman at some point before the season starts. So the sun is hitting me, and I think that's like messing with the lighting here. It's coming in through the window. I don't know. But regardless, thank you guys as always for tuning in. If you'd like to get in touch with this podcast, please send an email to lockedonnyrangers@gmail.com. Once again, that is lockedonnyrangers@gmail.com. Definitely give us a follow on Twitter as well, @LO_NY_Rangers. Once again, that is @LO_NY_Rangers. And definitely subscribe to Locked On New York Rangers YouTube channel. Thanks again, guys. I will see you next time.